Well, good afternoon. Um, like a lot of things in life, the thing that you find yourself doing is not the thing you started out to do. And I guess that this blog post, and especially the video accompanying it, falls into that category. The blog post culture matters is the result of a conversation with a friend and colleague, and it wasn't supposed to be. It's certainly not in its current state. But that conversation I had with my friend, Carm Capriotto, went ahead and just set off a whole series of fireworks in my head regarding this idea of culture. And I couldn't help myself. I found myself writing about it, which is the way I handle most everything else I do when I'm confronted with things that won't turn me loose. Um, I've always been fascinated with culture, but that fascination is turned into an obsession um, pretty much since I was accepted as a member on the Patient Family Advisory Council at the City of Hope. The Patient Family Advisory Council is pretty much, as it says, a council of patients and caregivers, people are intimately involved in what goes on at the City of Hope, who are committed to enhancing the culture that exists there and protecting that culture. And culture warrants protection. Otherwise, it can evaporate. One of the reasons I hesitated to do this video part of the blog is because the piece that I wrote is significantly longer than the pieces I normally write. Generally, the blog posts are about 300 words, and some of the longer posts for Mitch Schneider's world have been 1,000. And this is, 1,200 or more. And while that's a lot of words, it still doesn't come close to scratching the surface of this whole idea of culture and what it means. Now, going back to the PFAC, Patient Family Advisory Council, um, and culture at the City of Hope, I developed a whole new understanding of what that's about and why it's so important. Uh, and in the blog post itself, I took the time to define it both as a sociological phenomenon and as a cultural or organizational phenomenon. And they're different. I mean, you can define culture sociologically as languages, customs, beliefs, rules, arts, knowledge, and collective identities and memories developed by members of a social group or social groups that make their social environments meaningful. I mean, that's a long way around the barn to say that culture pretty much captures the comprehensive nature of what this whole idea is really about, at least within that context. Organizationally, it's different. Organizationally, it's the proper way to behave within an organization. Shared beliefs, values established by the organization's leaders. These beliefs are then reinforced and then communicated through various measures, not the least of which is example. Uh, I'm not sure that there's a better way to explain what culture is all about, or its significance, or its meaning, than a trip out to Duarte and the City of Hope, and the Golter Gate, Golter, the Golter Gate, and I've included in the context of the blog a picture, an image of the gate, and it reads simply that there's no profit in curing the body if in the process we destroy the soul. And if you want to understand what culture is all about and how it manifests itself in reality, there's no better example than that, if you ask me, because every decision that's made, every action that's taken is considered in the context of that very simple yet very complicated statement. And it's important to recognize that. Now, when we look at culture organizationally, and pretty much that's what I did in the blog, Simply stated, you can say that's the way things are done around here. It's our collective belief that suggests that people like us, when confronted with situations like these, are going to act in the following ways because of our shared norms and values and beliefs, principles, what have you. Especially when it comes to small business operation. So one of the things that really got me thinking about this in the context of my conversation with Carm was in the discussion, the subject of people that have bought and sold businesses and how that reflects how they see or understand culture, whether they appreciate the nature of the culture they've created or that's been created. And I would suggest, strongly suggest, that to a large degree, even more than curb appeal or location, what really attracts somebody to write a check and buy a business, go through that torment, is the culture they perceive in the way that business operates. That's what attracts people or repels them, probably more than anything else. And that's a direct result, a manifestation of the belief system or the personality of the present leadership and management of the company that they're looking at. Now, when do small business owners buy businesses? Either when they're thinking about going into business or when they're thinking about expanding or moving to a better location. And that's when culture plays a major role because, like it or not, understand it or not, believe it or not, accept it or not, every business has a culture. Even businesses that don't have cultures have a culture, a non-existent culture. So it's really important to recognize what that culture is all about, especially if you're looking to purchase a business, because to a large degree, what you're buying is that culture manifested in reality. And the thing that fascinates me most, and I keep coming back to that, and I keep saying that, but there are layers like an onion that get deeper and deeper and deeper in it, is that recognizing that all businesses, all organizations, all families have culture, you have to realize that culture is mobile. It can be transported from one place to another, and it usually is. So if you're buying a business, and a big part of the reason that you're buying that business is the way it appears to run, the way the leadership guides that business, the way the culture manifests itself in everyday operations of the business, you have to realize that you're dragging along your own culture, the culture that you established in your own business. Now, it's one thing to suggest that you believe with a perfect faith that your culture is superior. But it's another to recognize that if you're looking to buy that business with that existing culture, you're almost implicitly stating that there's something about this culture that you're looking at that is attractive and perhaps even more attractive than your own. And you have to be cognizant of that. You have to be aware of it. And you have to go ahead and dig in really hard to make sure that the culture that you are attracted to is the one that ends up dominating that sociological entity, that organization, that organizational entity, that business. And it doesn't always happen that way. And one of the reasons it doesn't always happen that way is because of habits and patterns, policies and procedures that we've either established or failed to establish within the context of our own business. And how difficult it is to change. Now, think about it for a moment. If you're moving from one family unit to another, the clash of those cultures can be really significant. It would be safe to say that you don't marry just your partner, you marry that partner's family and the culture that that partner comes from. When you buy a business, it's no different. You have a culture, whether you recognize it or not, whether you want to admit it or not, whether you realize it or not, you have a culture. And that culture manifests itself in the everyday operation of your business. When you go ahead and you acquire another company and you hope to allow that culture to dominate, you've got to be prepared to abandon elements of the culture that you're bringing with you, so that it doesn't become dominant. Because you're going to fall back, or at least be tempted to fall back on old habits, patterns, and procedures, policies that govern the old business, rather than go through the turbulent turmoil of accommodating yourself to the new culture that you're seeing. So in all instances, you have to admit the fact that culture matters, and it matters dramatically. It matters as far as what could be, and it matters as far as what if is concerned. So if you want to avoid chaos, you better be prepared ahead of time to deal with those issues. Uh, what I said in the blog, and I guess I'll quote myself, is that if you're already an existing business and you're unaware of your culture, and you may be courting disaster if you plan to bring that culture with you, unless you commit to abandoning that culture, accepting the new culture, or at least accommodating yourself to it to the point where the elements of that culture that you feel are superior are able to go ahead and dominate. You're able to transition into those elements of culture, especially if that culture is everything that yours isn't. So the problem is the ease with which you can find yourself sliding backward into your old culture. The how quickly you can abandon those difficult elements of the new culture that require constant attention to detail, and discipline and determination, so that those habits can develop into patterns and then policies and procedures. You know, if the goal is to be better, then you've got to go ahead and make the commitment to be better in everything that you do, and you better be facing in that direction constantly. Otherwise, what you may be doing is just, opening a suitcase and unpacking, replicating a flawed culture that wasn't fully satisfying in the first place, and may not have given you the success that eluded you in the past. So suffice it to say that whether focused on business, family, or friends, culture matters. And for it to matter, it has to matter to you. Until the next time, stay well, take care. That's it for now.